The world of Pokemon is filled with all types of creatures. From badass dragons like Dragonite and Salamence to powerful legendaries like Xerneas and Yveltal, the franchise certainly has its share of epicness. And then you've got the opposite side of the coin, which encompasses some of the stranger Pokemon of the franchise. These Pokemon certainly aren't bad, but between their appearances, Pokedex entries, and abilities, they're more than a little eccentric. So, in honor of all the weirdness in Pokemon, today I'm here to count down my top 5 weirdest Pokemon of all time. First, let's start with some honorable mentions here. A quick note, I'm not going to go into detail about them, but I'll leave links to their Bulbapedia pages down below for further reading. The honorable mentions are as follows: Eldrim, Mawile, Bronzong, Vanillix, Probopass, and Girafarig. I highly recommend checking out more about them down below, because believe me when I say these things are probably a lot weirder than you think. Anyways, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and officially get into the countdown. Number 5, Mr. Mime. The first thing I'd like to draw attention to is the fact that Mr. Mime looks weird as hell. After countless hours of looking at this thing, I really have no idea what Game Freak was thinking. Which is not at all to say I hate Mr. Mime, since I do actually like it quite a bit. It's just a very strange Pokemon is all. A lot of the time people don't notice how odd its appearance is, since Mr. Mime has been around for a really long time and people are sort of used to it by now, but if you take a second to really look at the thing, you start to come to terms with the sheer weirdness of its design. And it doesn't end there, my friends. Not in the slightest. According to the Leaf Green Pokedex, Mr. Mime loves to mime, and if ever interrupted, it will start double slapping whoever interrupted him. Another oddity about Mr. Mime is that it has the prefix Mr. in its name, but it can be a female. This thing is already weird enough, but having a female Mr. Mime is just a mindfuck. So for all those reasons, Mr. Mime is number 5 on this list. Number 4, Spoink. Of all the Pokemon in the world, I think Spoink has a pretty good case for being the most tragic one. Let me read you its Pokedex entry from Pokemon Ruby. Spoink bounces around on its tail. The shock of its bouncing makes its heart pump. As a result, this Pokemon cannot afford to stop bouncing. If it stops, its heart will stop and it will die. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I would be scared shitless if I were a Spoink. If I ever got too tired and stopped bouncing, my heart would stop, which is honestly just a horrible fate to be subjected to. Its Pokedex entry almost sounds like some form of forced torture. Like someone put a stick of dynamite on your chest and said, keep bouncing around or I'm gonna blow you up. Also, this thing casually looks really weird. Somehow Game Freak managed to combine a spring, a pig, and a pearl into a single Pokemon. Which, by the way, that pearl is supposed to be the pearl from a Clamperl. And that begs the question, how in the blue hell is a Spoink supposed to get its hands on something like that? I really have no idea what the answer to that question is, but one thing I do know for sure is that Spoink is one strange Pokemon, and that's never gonna change. Number 3, Shedinja. First of all, this thing's stats are strange as all hell. It has stupidly low stats outside of physical attack. Actually, I can't even call its HP stat low because it's not an HP stat. It's just 1 HP. That doesn't constitute as an actual stat. Additionally, it's got a very strange ability in Wonder Guard, which nullifies damage outside of super effective hits, weather effects, entry hazards, and status damage. But I'm sure most of you already knew this, so let's move on to something a little bit more subtle. Taking a look at Shedinja's Pokedex entry, supposedly if one peers into the crack on the back of its shell, Shedinja will steal your spirit. Moreover, the Pokedex claims that this Pokemon doesn't breathe and is entirely immobile. Putting aside the impossibility of something being alive yet not breathing or moving, this is insanely strange. A lot of weird Pokemon out there are weird in only one aspect, like their Pokedex descriptions, appearance, or something else. But Shedinja is literally weird in every single category. And that ultimately is why it's number 3 on this list. Number 2, Litwick and Lampent. I've chosen a duo for this one since these two really go hand in hand. To begin with, both of these two are based on some pretty strange ideas. Litwick is a ghost type Pokemon based on a living candle, while Lampent is a ghost type based on a lantern come to life. And this already makes them quite the oddity in my eyes. The thing is, this is nowhere near weird enough to put them this high on the countdown. So why do I have them at number 2? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at their Pokedex entries to find out. First of all, despite its cute appearance, Litwick is insanely creepy. According to the Pokedex, it shines a light and pretends to be a guide for lost people, when in fact it is sucking away the souls of these people and leading them into the ghost world. Lampent not only does the same thing, but also wanders around hospitals and absorbs the souls of people who are dead or dying, which is a huge dick move. Seriously though, Litwick and Lampent's Pokedex entries are some pretty creepy and mature stuff for a Pokemon game, which is exactly why I've got them at number 2. Number 1. Duskull. Let me say right off the bat here that the reason why Duskull is number 1 is partly because of my own personal interpretation of this Pokemon. I have no idea if this interpretation is how Game Freak wanted to portray Duskull, but no matter how hard I try, I just can't seem to shake it. I'll start by saying that Duskull's stats aren't really weird in the slightest, and at first glance it isn't any weirder than your standard ghost type Pokemon. However, all this changes the second you read its Pokedex entry. According to the Pokedex, Duskull kidnaps bad children and loves the sound of them crying. It stalks its victims in dark forests and will doggedly pursue its target until the break of dawn. So basically Duskull is a stalker and a pedophile. Here's where my own interpretation comes in though. Does anyone else sort of think Duskull resembles an old man? Just the way it's hunched over with a hand behind its back reminds me of a hunched over old man. So basically you've got a Pokemon that's an old man pedophile and likes to hear children crying. Even if you don't want to believe the whole old man thing, Duskull's behavior strangely resembles that of a pedophile, which is exactly why I've got it as number 1 on this countdown. Well, alright folks, that is pretty much gonna do it for this video. As always, if you enjoyed this creepy countdown, be sure to drop me a like down below and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already for more Pokemon videos in the future. And of course, be sure to let me know your thoughts on these choices down below. Do you agree with them for the most part, or do you think there are a few that I missed? Otherwise, I hope you all have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you in my next video.